Okay, so I read this great book. It's a Harlequin book. It's the Western uh, Harlequin Western series, and the name of the book is called The Rebel's Cowboy Baby, and it's by the USA Today best-selling author Sasha Summers. And I'm going to read the little back cover part, and of course the front part, and the little note from the author. But I have marked some pages to share with you that I found hilarious. And it shows you that sometimes when you need to break the ice, you can think of something off the wall to just be comical, if you will. So, anyway, can a wild cowboy prove that he's daddy material? Rodeo cowboy Audie Briscoe loves getting into trouble. If he can't charm his way into a beautiful and straight-laced Brooke Young's heart, then he'll settle for riling her up, but good. When a terrible tragedy leaves them co-guardians of a baby girl, Audie finds himself in over his head. Is it too late to turn this restless rebel cowboy into the kind of man and father that Brooke could love? Well, let's wet your whistle. This is all wrong, Audie. Her life will never be the same. Brooke looked at him. Audie's blue gaze met hers. She's a little thing, Brooke. She can't miss what she doesn't remember. He cleared his throat. But I agree with you. This is all wrong. Since he'd shown up at Young's salon, she'd seen a different side of Audie Briscoe, vulnerable and uncertain, but he was trying. It gave her hope that maybe the two of them could find a way to make this work. Kent and Dara should have left Joy to you, Audie said. We both know that I'm going to get in your way and make a mess of things. She shook her head. But they didn't, Audie. Joy is our responsibility. Joy isn't a dog or a horse. She's a little girl. She smiled down at the baby. We are all she has, and we can't let her down. Here's the note from the author. Dear reader, howdy from Texas, y'all. I'm so excited to share my very first Harlequin heartwarming novel with you. Right from the start, I knew that Garrison would be a magical place. I could picture its downtown square and all the little storefronts with the big picture windows, perfect for watching and keeping tabs on who and what's what. The women of Garrison Ladies' Guild are the best at this, and they are a hoot. They might be into everyone's business, but how else can they make sure everything turns out just right? From the matchmaking to saving the oldest tree in Texas, they get things done, and their latest challenge is Audie and Brooke. Audie Briscoe is a bigger-than-life cowboy with Paul Newman good looks and the love of all things adrenaline-inducing. Brooke Young is a no-nonsense and responsible as they come. Of course, the two don't see eye to eye on a thing, so how are they supposed to raise their best friend's baby together? It's not that easy, let me tell you, but their story is all about hope, second chances, community, and the power of love. I hope that you love your first visit to Garrison and that you'll come back real soon. Thank you so much for reading this, Sasha Summers. Now here comes that little comical part that I wanted to share with you. This is after Kent and Dara have passed on, unfortunately. Kent was Audie's best friend, and Dara was the best friend of Brooke. So they're on their way back home. They've been playing these CDs in their CD player to get little Joy to calm down. But listen to this part here on page 91. When Joy had started calling Mama, he was having a hard time breathing. It hurt. Something fierce. Not to explain things to Joy. Not that it would give her any comfort. Luckily, that was when Brooke unearthed the CD. If she hadn't, Audie wasn't sure. It likely wouldn't have been pretty. He might not be a baby person, but Joy was about the cutest thing he ever set eyes on, and he felt certain he'd act like a fool to keep her from being sad. And come on, that little flip thing? Nope, nuh-uh. He could not handle that, which meant he was stuck with a CD over and over. If he hadn't known the words to There Was an Old Lady before this trip, he hadn't, of course. He knew every single one of them by heart now. Chances were that song would haunt his dreams at night. The same perky-sounding woman singing into his ear, playing on repeat. Audie shuddered at the thought. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and Bingo were just close seconds. But the only song that made Joy happy and had her little feet bouncing along with the music was There Was an Old Lady. Now that Joy's eyes had drifted shut and Brooke had turned down the music, he could think a little more clearly, though he wasn't sure that was much better. Thoughts of Garrison, his family co-parenting with Brooke, and not to mention Joy herself. No, he didn't want to think right now. From the look on Brooke's face, she was pondering the same worries that he was. Looks like we both need to get out of our heads, is what Audie is thinking in his. It never says why she swallowed the fly, he said without really thinking through what he was saying. Does it? Brooke's astonishment was funny, sort of. It would have been even funnier if her eyes weren't red-rimmed and bloodshot. What? He didn't blame her for being shocked. It wasn't exactly the sort of thing he'd even imagined saying, but now that it was out there and he had her attention, he kept on going. The song. It says why she swallowed the spider, the bird, the cat, and the dog, but after that the whole thing goes off the rails. He shook his head, giving her a disbelieving look. A goat? To catch a dog? What does it mean by to catch? It's a goat. It doesn't have any hands, so it can't catch the dog. It can't catch anything. Brooke was full on staring at him now, mouth open. And if she swallowed the goat to eat the dog, that wouldn't work. A goat will just eat about anything, but I've never seen in all my days a goat that eat a canine. And I've seen my fair share of things, let me tell you. As far as I know, a goat is a herbivore. And that part, then, that last bit, he shook his head, about the horse, you're telling me she's swallowing a horse and it killed her? She's fine swallowing a whole barnyard or livestock that doesn't even bat an eye, but no, it's the horse that finally did her in. Brooke blinked and her mouth opened and closing and opening again. It's far-fetched is all I'm saying, he shrugged. She probably had internal hemorrhaging long before she went in and swallowed some poor old horse. Not that it's physically possible for anyone to swallow a horse, not whole, that's for sure, but it'd be pretty hard to swallow any of those things. Really, once you get past that bird, even it depends on what type of bird we're talking about. A finch, maybe. A blue jay, unlikely. He paused and then swiveled his thumb in Joy's direction. Come to think of it, why is this all okay for her to hear? All this one thing eating another thing, all inside some poor old woman's body. That would give a little one nightmares, wouldn't it? Some poor old woman that no one knows for whatever reason, that none of the song ever explains anyway, ate a dadgum fly plus some. Brooke made a sound that startled and high-pitched along with the lines of a giggle. She cleared her throat. Audie, she stopped. Go on, I'm all ears for this. Animals eating animals seems downright inappropriate for baby music. I'm not sure it's good for her, is all I'm trying to say. He tapped a foot along with the music, then stopped and pointed at the radio console. And another thing, which song came first? Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or the alphabet song? He waited, but she'd gone back to being silently staring at him, so he went on. It's the same music. You hear it. Listen. He stopped for a second, then nodded. Exact music. Sure, they changed the lyrics, but the music. Same. Isn't that like plagiarism or something? Another giggle, but this time there was no denying it was a giggle. What, after 24 hours of tension so thick that he nearly choked on it, he was all too content to savor a Brooke Young smile. Her laughter, too. She shook her head and still laughing. No. Now, come on, he was smiling now. He had to. After listening to the same songs for the last 3 hours plus questions that are going to come up. That's all I'm saying. He glanced at Joy, sleeping soundly. She's asleep, so you can say what you're thinking, and don't tell me you weren't thinking the same things. I wasn't. She was a little breathless. Honest, that everything you just said, no, that was entirely a unique take on a song kids shouldn't be listening to, he finished for her. She grinned. I never thought I'd hear Audie Briscoe get all worked up over what was suitable for music for a baby. And why is that? He countered, glad for the conversation, even one that was mostly nonsense. Mr. Break into Stockyards rile up the old bulls Briscoe? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I'm more familiar with a tractor race than the ditch crane and crashing Audie, she sighed. How did she know about the Starkyards? As far as he knew, that wasn't common knowledge, not yet anyway. It wasn't like a person to keep a secret in Garrison, though. Too many eyes and ears and people with too much time on their hands for that. Well, just because I've been known to sow some wild oats every now and then again doesn't mean I'm okay with a little thing like Joy being entertained by this sort of thing. He pointed at the radio. It's just not right, Brooke. There's nothing wrong with some classic George Jones or Charlie Pride or Patsy Cline. No dog eating goats in any of their songs. Brooks smiled again. No, just drinking and cheating and heartbreak. You're saying those things are worse than a little old woman eating a bunch of animals and dropping dead? He shook his head. Her chuckle was soft. We're almost home anyway. I doubt you'll have to listen to it for much longer. Home. What did that mean now? Part of him wanted to ask. There was a whole slew of unanswered questions they needed to hash out, but the conversation would swipe away the smile and make things stiff and tension-heavy in no time. Being an adult, I just lost my place, isn't all that fun and games. It's hard choices and hard conversations for the rest voices and all condescending impatience. Let's see here. Let me find the spot. Played through his brain. Fine, 27 makes me an adult. I can be a grown-up. No putting it off anyway. In 30 minutes they'd be pulling into town, and he suspected they'd likely be a welcoming party of curious townfolk eagerly awaiting their arrival. And that's all I have marked for you, because I wanted to wet your whistle, but I thought that was the most hilarious thing I've read in a romance novel in a long time. And I thought, wow, can you picture something like a Beth and Rip riding down the interstate with a baby that maybe they just inherited because unfortunately they lost their two best friends, and Rip saying that to Beth just to get her attention or get her to smile? What a great book. You want to pick this book up. You want to read this book. And I'm giving it high marks. High marks. It's going to have over 600 stars. That makes it a must read. I loved it not only for Brooke and Audie's story, and Little Joy especially, but for also the story of her sister that she had to raise, Tess, and his brother, Audie, has Bo. And I want you to read that love story in there, which is a love story in its own. But it's just a great book. I enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you for the laughter, thank you for the smiles, and thank you for the tears. Yes, tears. And Hallmark, this would be a great movie for your channel, just saying. So with that being said, that's the end of the book review tonight. Stay tuned.